Now go on to Mr. Johns for 6 minutes or less, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses. Mr. Hardy asked a question, Dr. DeChico, about the west coast of Vancouver Island, and we've seen plummeting returns, whether it be in Tofino Creek, Atleo River, Tranquil River, all in Tloquit and the Howsett Nation territory, and the Kennedy as well. Do you believe that salmon farms have had an impact on those wild stock returns?
Well, I believe so. We even been trying to do a study directly in that area to assess what was the impact of the agents in that type of population. Because as I said, particularly Chinook and Co, they spend a lot of time in the first phase of their life inside the sound. And so they are in close contact to the farms that are present in that area for a long period of time. So the impact is definitely prolonged, and that can be detrimental for the survival.
We've heard about mouth rot, PRV, sea lice. We've had escapes. We've had die-offs. This is a question for Ms. Riston. The Cohen Commission cited number 3, the Government of Canada should remove from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans the mandate to be the promotion of salmon farming as an industry and farm salmon as a product. Do you believe that they can be both the regulator and the agent, the regulator to protect wild salmon?
No, it simply has not worked out at all for the wild salmon in that regard. The mandate to expand the industry to help it grow has overtaken at every turn considerations of the impacts on wild salmon. And I mean, I could provide you with a host of examples, very specific examples of how that's happened. Mouth rot would be a good one. The government's been studying mouth rot together with industry since at least 2009. But in 2019, it couldn't answer the question, do wild fish get it? In 2019, it couldn't answer the question, how many sea lice are there on migrating Fraser River sockeye? They just don't look at any of the questions that need to be looked at to protect the wild fish, because if they did, they couldn't promote the salmon farming.
Given that, do you believe that British Columbians can trust the science that the government has? Because we've had several reports and a recent Canadian Science Advisory Secretariat that said that PRV is endemic in British Columbia, not a concern. This is right there. And would you agree that PRV is not of concern, like DFO is saying, or is PRV concerning you? What is the failure of DFO to not take PRV seriously?
PRV is a very good example, and I think Dr. DeChico is probably better qualified than I to answer this question.
Sure, why don't we let him answer that? That'd be great.
Yeah.
So I think there has been an interpretation of the word endemic by DFO and the application in this case, because endemic can usually be seen as consistently present in a population as opposed to epidemic, or
what about minimal concern? They keep saying minimal concern.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is even if it was endemic and is not, there are endemic agents that are of concern. There is IHN, which is another virus endemic of BC, endemic of sockeye, but if they get IHN, they die. So it's a major concern even if that agent is endemic. So saying that because it's endemic is not a problem, it's wrong.
So if this is being left out of scientific assessments, what does it tell you about, or tell all of us about the processes within the department?
Well, the process as it was set up for those 9 reviews was wrong from the start, in the sense that they're already narrowing the scope to only sockeye salmon and only in that region. They were already posing themselves for a failure of a meaningful review from the start.
Ms. Riston, I'm hoping you can tell the committee a bit more about sea lice on wild salmon, and maybe you can tell us about the impact sea lice has on an individual fish, and how has that infection rate on Fraser River sockeye changed between 2015 and 2020?
Well, it's Fraser River sockeye are very much at risk from sea lice, particularly as they were passing through the Discovery Islands in 2020. The monitoring results from 2020 indicated 99% of the fish sampled were infected with an average of 9 lice per fish. At that rate, the fish are suffering extreme stress that's interfering with their ability to regulate their blood chemistry. They're not likely to feed well, and their chances of survival are severely depressed. So these are the...
Yeah, maybe when we have infection rates that are large, that you're seeing like that. What does that mean for salmon returns? And are there's lots of things impacting wild salmon returns. Is there a way we can quantify or look at sea lice infections impacting these numbers? And is this an isolated problem just for the Fraser in terms of salmon, and also the pesticides that the companies are using? Maybe you can speak about that as well.
Yeah, no, it's not isolated to the Fraser River salmon by any means. Fraser sockeye did take quite a beating this year, but other places where the lice have been out of control because they are now resistant to drugs, it's been the same case. Clayoquot Sound's another good case in point. The Broughton was until we started removing salmon farms and reduced the lice pressure there. So it's everywhere. It's not going to change because sea lice are not something that can be controlled. It's not happened anywhere in the world, and it's not going to happen here. I'm sorry, Mr. Johns, the second part of your question just escaped me. You asked me two very distinct things. And you're on mute.
In terms of the infection rate being this large, can you talk about how we can quantify or look at sea lice infections impacting stocks and these large numbers?
Quick answer, please.
In terms of quantifying it, I mean, we know where they're being impacted. Quantifying the impact on individual runs is extremely difficult because we don't have a great deal of data on runs in many, many parts of the province. They've dwindled to almost nothing. They can't stand any more impact. That's all we really need to know at this point.